So we're rolling, we're on the Tarkine coast with the extraordinary Mr. Nolan Fox. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nolan Fox. Good to be out here with you, buddy.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. So we're at the end of this trip, and these Adapta-Pod shelters have been effectively creating a village for us for the duration of 8 days on the Tarkine coast. And so what I'm wanting to do is introduce you guys as the Wild Walkers community and anyone watching this documentary piece to Nolan, the actual creator, manufacturer, designer, innovator of Adapta-Pods. And we're going to go for a little guided tour of the Adapta-Pod shelter, which has been a complete and utter success on this coastline. And I was a bit dubious about how they'd stand up to the wind. So maybe we go into that little bit of detail in a minute. Shall we go for a little wander?
Yep.
So Nolan's really the man to take us into all of the details in terms of the structure, but the concept for us, I've been out on this landscape for almost 20 years guiding people, and over the course of that time I've been absolutely looking for the perfect semi-demountable structure so that we could install in the landscape to create a group shelter. And there's nothing remotely that I've ever seen that would potentially cut the mustard when it comes to providing that level of durability. And so as we've been out here across the trip, the wind's been absolutely howling, and with minimal anchorage, these things have stood up remarkably. So what we're doing is working with Nolan, who's the local Tasmanian that lives in Deloraine and manufactures these from his workshop in Deloraine. And Wild Walkers is actively supporting and promoting Adapta-Pods and wanting to invest in purchasing as many of these as we can for these trips, for the purpose that they're so practical for what it is that we're after in terms of creating group shelter. But maybe just have a little bit of a yarn, mate, about the history of Adapta-Pod, and then we'll go into some of the specifics in terms of design and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure thing. I guess it all began when I bought a house and just went, I want something that can move with me. So looked into alternatives, eventually found geodesic domes, which appealed to me because they're easily demountable, super strong, but also quite complex. So after many years of building and designing those, decided I needed something a bit simpler, so went back to first principles and designed a new geometry, and basically made it as simple and as portable as possible. So simplicity being that these panels here are vertical, these wall struts are the same length as the ceiling struts, everything's based around a hexagonal base and a hexagonal offset hexagon for the base of the roof. So there's only 3 different strut lengths, 13 joiners, and it all just anchors just at the base nodes, and it's stood up. I've had ones subjected to 180k winds that have gone nowhere, so quite confident with the wind strength of them. And this one, because I was expecting potentially harsh conditions here, has facility to add extra anchor points, but we've had pretty solid winds and haven't needed the extra anchor points. And everything stood up really well. This one's been designed so that it can be easily adapted. The ceiling panels are all individual, each wall section is individual. They can open up and add on tunnels or extra storage off the sides. And as you can see here, we've got people in hammocks, so it supports hammocks, can support like a mezzanine level for storage or sleeping. And yeah, the whole thing weighs about 60 kilos, so it is a bit to lug in, but has comfortably held space for 18 people, and lots of room for gear as well, so it's been quite a success.
And I guess not to mention the engineering and the strength of it being, a key feature, because the other pod, the 3 metre, we've got 3 pods out here, and the 3 metre, which is the one that we've been that the operations crew have been sleeping in. I've actually been sleeping in the roof of it, and the thing, you know, is pitched from like I guess it's some kind of like, is it the shade cloth kind of fabric or whatever that you've used to anchor to each corner piece?
Yeah.
And it's remarkable, the strength of the thing. I'm completely blown away by it. And then, you know, you're getting to have like this kind of star platform sleeping underneath the stars, as well as the, you know, it maximising the efficiency of the space, because the ceilings are really high.
Yeah.
And so as someone that's used bell tents before, you know, number one, with bell tents you don't feel any sense of relatedness to the landscape. They're quite low, and the actual structural integrity of them in higher winds is really poor.
Yeah.
But these things have been, you know, already subjected to pretty high winds out here, and have stood the test of the winds really well. So I guess the adaptable nature of the thing is really fascinating to me. And as I'm kind of cruising around the pod over the course of the week, just noticing the little tiny details, and even as far as having, you know, packs and hooks available everywhere to hang things. The small pod being used for the kitchen. It's a tiny pod, and yet we've cooked for the entire crew using that kitchen. And then each one of the vestibules being, you know, just so well designed in terms of maximizing space, because each one of the vestibules effectively, you know, cuts away and pulls out. Each one of the doors pulls out to its own independent vestibule, which is an equilateral triangle at the ground, which creates 6 extra spaces.
Yeah.
And so, you know, where I'm going with, you know, the Adapta-Pod name is so perfect, because where I'm going mentally with it is like each vestibule can itself be its own little inner tent.
Yeah.
You know, so we could have, you know, 6 independent pods. So for example, when it gets to the point of running the trips with the kids, one of these could be the communal space, and then 6 beds, and a mezzanine to store all of the gear, hooks all over the walls. It's effectively we're creating a little home, a demountable home for that period of time.
Yep. And like you say, connection to the landscape. We can have the windows, the skylights, so even when you're in here, you feel like you're still out in the landscape.
Totally connected. And the other thing about without the wind, and the other thing about that is the UV protection of the plastic. So, you know, we've all noticed over the course of the week that it's been glaring heat outside. Coming in here, every single door has its own mesh, so it's ventilated beautifully with ventilation in the roof, as well as feeling the sun coming through the UV protected plastic is completely different from being exposed to the sun outside. So it's kind of like every level of detail has been considered, and then we're jamming out these ideas for, you know, how would we adapt it to suit our specific needs.
And that's really, for me, the core is that I want it to be adaptable. I want to find people with a specific need that have a very clear vision, and that passion for tapping into the potential.
Yeah.
And for me, that's magic. That's the whole reason I've set myself up to do it.
Yeah.
And to be on landscape is just a dream come true.
Yeah.
To align, it's been such a just beautiful.
Yeah.
And looking forward to many more.
It's been extraordinary, and
evolution.
I think as you know, as far as just the pragmatics of it are concerned, one of the things that's always really difficult here is that when we go to have a bit of a chat around the campfire and it's blowing a 40 knot westerly, everyone at night will just retire to their tent, which means we're missing all of that kind of intimacy that happens around the central hearth at night, and even just the practical ability to actually see how someone's travelling. Because someone could go 3 or 4 days in a landscape like this, and unless you get the chance as a kind of group to check in and see how are people travelling, what's the highlight of your day, you know, how you're going emotionally, mentally, physically, people can go off radar. And so just creating a space which becomes a sanctuary to get away from the weather enables us to sustain ourselves individually and collectively in the landscape.
And it's been such a beautiful experience to connect with everyone in this space. And this one's been a perfect size for.
It's been perfect size,
18
4 metre
people.
diameter. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and on occasions what we've ended up doing is reverting back to, you know, having the cooker in the centre, everyone sitting around a big pot of tea or a pot of coffee, chilling out, people reading books, and the kids. You know, the kids, it's been such a joy watching the kids playing and swinging on the hammocks, being able to retreat when they're feeling exhausted by the landscape, which happens here.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that you know is really important is, you know, the forming, you know, local partnerships and creative partnerships, collaborative partnerships of creating a wild walkers range of Adapta-Pods, where, you know, local artists can design the skins thematically so that they're actually tagged with, you know, beautiful artwork, like ecologically designed artwork of, you know, working with someone like Jarman, or working with someone like Aurora, who's an artist, to design templates that can be added onto as artistically designed skins. Super exciting. So
Exactly. And for me, I could take it wherever I wanted, but where I want it to be in this moment is in Tassie with real people on the ground, being creative, being collaborative, and focusing on that.
Yeah.
Because that's all I want to do is deal with real people.
Yeah.
In the real world. And this is my world at the moment. I choose to be here.
Yeah.
And this is who I want to connect with, where I want to connect.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And give us a little bit of a rundown on the materials. Like, talk us through the polyester canvas, the plastic, the poles, the joins. So just speak us through a little bit of the design principles.
It starts with the poles. So basically, this is the simplest portable system that I could devise. If I move Uncle up, you can see that it's basically just lengths of aluminium tube cut to length, squashed and angled at the ends with one common hole. So then it just has a M10 bolt rigged through it, has eye nuts so that you can rig ropes, carabiners, anything you want off of those. You can see the anchor rope, so there's just a large tent peg on the other side anchoring the base. As long as the base is anchored solidly to the ground, like I say, it's been through 180k winds and hasn't budged. And then material wise, the clear panels are vinyl. They're all basically stuff that would have otherwise ended up on landfill. I sourced that from people that make commercial blinds. They don't use the last 2.5 meters of every roll of vinyl, so it just seems ridiculous to throw that away. And for this purpose, having little imperfections, if you really look closely you can see them, but you're not really aware of them, and it's just stopping wastage. And it is, like, they do use premium, like, it is the highest quality vinyl you can get, and that'll last like 15 years under UV. The canvas is premium marine grade polyester canvas. It's highly breathable, fully waterproof, really abrasion resistant. I've had one, the other pod that we've got for the gear tent, I've deliberately set up underneath tree branches, so in the wind. It's been there for over 6 months now, with the tree branches scraping and swaying against it constantly, and I can't even see where they touch. So it's standing the test of time. And then it has other mesh up here, so there's a flap on the outside that can be opened out so you get extra ventilation through there. All of the doors open, so you can open whichever ones you want and have the mesh so you still stop the bugs but get good breeze. Up in the ceiling we've got a apex vent, so all of the hot air can just escape through that. There's the option of clipping on curtain panels so you can stop the solar sort of heat coming through, and those can be chopped and changed, raised and lowered really easily. Can support, like the other pod has the tension mezzanine floor that you can sleep on or use for gear storage. You can rig air chairs and other things from the center. And in these, when we pop out the vestibules, you can have air chairs hanging in there. So just all kinds of easy, lightweight seating options between hammocks and lightweight suspended air chairs. and getting all the gear up off the ground. Optional waterproof floors, and it goes on and on, really. This is just the beginning, starting simple and going wherever, and I guess I've set myself up so I can make whatever size and whatever geometry frame and use whatever materials people want for whatever application and customize it. Like this one is in its current form, can still be sort of adapted. It's not like it's fixed. Things can be added on to this cover. These individual panels can be swapped and changed for other panels. So there's, just I've made sure that I'm in a position where I can create whatever I want to suit customers' needs, and really want to see them in wild places more than anything. So that's why I'm so stoked to be here and out in the wild and supporting that.
And they've been massively road tested and everybody fundamentally loves them. And the other thing that I think is important to mention is the proceeds from the sale of the Wild Walkers Adapta-Pods range. You're donating a percentage of that money back to Wild Walkers to underpin the operating budget.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're doing is creating a market-based economy where members of the organisation, and this is one of the things that we've been, jamming out for the 8 days with the group of people out here, members of the organisation are paying a membership, which means they're paying a trip fee in advance over the course of a year, then have the ability to sell their service or their product or whatever back to the community, to the other members of the community, and Wild Walkers takes a 10% commission on the exchange.
Yeah.
So that is also fantastic because it helps you to offset your membership, and it means that that now the entire community is exposed to them.
Yeah.
And so many people on this trip have said, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to have one of these set up in my backyard, so that I could then, create it as like a little glamping experience or whatever. And that's definitely what we want to do at Oyster Cove, is to actually set up a whole range of these, but actually have Wild Walkers own them and generate income stream back to the organisation. And so the whole kind of partnership, and it's fundamentally a huge value of mine personally and of everyone that is part of the organisation, is to create localised economy where we're investing inside our own community, as opposed to getting stuff like this sort of thing. We could spend $3,000 and get some kind of fancy thing that's made in Vietnam, or we could support a local Tasmanian creative fella that's designed these incredible structures that have now been road tested in the landscape. So I'm just absolutely blown away by what it is that you've created, and every single person on the trip is. We've created ourselves a little wild village that's like a pack of elves we're about to pack up and take back away, and we'll never know that we've been here.
Exactly. And for me, like, I'm only one person. As it grows and evolves, I want to be tapping into the Tassie community to train people to do the different bits, so that I can continue to sort of evolve the front line of it, and the things that are established that other people can take over, and creative things like artists like Aurora and Jarman can be doing their bits. So trying to get other people involved. People might have just one creative add-on that they just feel the motivation to add to the pods, and I welcome them. I'm happy to guide people that have something that they would like to contribute, and just set the parameters of what that needs to be. We can test it out in the landscape. And that way it's not just me making pods and me benefiting from it. Other people contribute, other people benefit. That's right. And it just goes on and on.
Not to mention that down the track, the kids that eventually come through the programs that we fund can possibly get an apprenticeship. Exactly. Training up in upholstery. So it's all the creative opportunities are literally extraordinary. So dude, absolutely stoked with the structures. Everyone's stoked with the structures. It's such a pleasure for me personally. I'm your biggest fan. There might be other fans as big as me, I'm not sure, but I absolutely love them. And it's just been the most enormous contribution, having spent almost 20 years bringing people into this exact spot. To suddenly have spaces like these out here has changed everything. So super happy, super stoked, and looking forward to the next chapter.
Yeah, well, it's been an honour to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I'm super stoked to be coming back here
Yeah.
again and again.
Yeah. Want to see if we can get another one away this summer.
Yeah,
That's the plan.
I'm on board.
Rock and roll, guys. That's us signing off from the Tarkine with the amazing Mr. Fox.